Well, what do you know? MSNBC's Morning Joe was beyond impressed with the first night of the DNC, and he's now claiming Democrats are the more patriotic party. Let's watch.
What Republicans feared the most last night was the joy, but also the chants of USA, USA, USA. And why did that ring true? Because the Republican Party has sold itself to a man who lies about America every day and says we're a nation in decline, who lies about America every day and says we're a nation of losers, who lies about America every day and says that we're just on the verge of collapse. No, not true. The data doesn't bear it out economically, militarily, culturally, socially, in every way. This is a great country. So now the Democratic Party can cheer USA, USA, USA. And it's a hell of a contrast with a presidential candidate on the Republican side that talks down about America every day.
He does have a point saying the Democrats are looking patriotic. Take a look at this Freedom ad that DNC aired last night.
Trying to rain on the thunder. Tell a storm I'm new. I'm a wild, come and march on the regular. Painted white flags blue.
What kind of America do we want? One where we're divided, angry, depressed? Come on. We're Americans. Fascism, we conquered it. The moon, landed on it. The future, building it. Freedom, nobody loves it more.
But not all of the mainstream media were as confident in Vice President Kamala Harris's ability to beat former President Donald Trump. Here's what CNN's David Axelrod said about it.
Look, she has made extraordinary progress. We were all in Milwaukee a month ago, and, you know, there was euphoria there in a sense that this race was over, that they were going to win by a landslide, perhaps sweep in big majorities in the House and Senate, and things have changed dramatically. But this is still a very competitive race. If the election were today, I'm not sure who would win. And I think it may well be President Trump because it's an electoral college fight.
Right.
And in those battleground states.
Yeah, we were looking at national numbers at the top of this program. That's, I mean, it's misleading.
And I've said several times here that, you know, for a Democrat to win those battleground states, they have to have a significant lead in the Electoral College. Remember, Joe Biden won by 7 million votes nationally last time, and a margin of 45,000 votes or 44,000 votes in the three closest battleground states combined. So she's right to be telling people it's good to be enthusiastic. That enthusiasm is really, really important for the Democratic Party, but you have to turn that into energetic action.
Meanwhile, MSNBC's Joy Reid continued to praise what she sees as Joe Biden's heroic transfer of power. Let's watch.
I don't think you've ever seen a more seamless, more affectionate handoff of power from one person to another, both of whom have the aspiration to be president, and both of whom believe that they can occupy that seat, and they shared power in a great way, and the affection was just so palpable.
I mean, just going off that last point by Joy Reid there about what an affectionate handoff, and yeah, there's no bitterness or acrimony. This is because they had no real democratic process. They just coronated her as the nominee. They ousted Joe Biden, made her the nominee. If there's no contentiousness, it's because they didn't do what they did in all of those previous conventions where there was an actual contest between different candidates and there were debates and the people picked. So I guess if you just totally short circuit the entire democratic process, then yes, there's no contentiousness. Maybe you can see that as a positive attribute. I don't know that that's the way that people see it, but fine.
I don't know. They were on the same team. She was the vice president. It just doesn't seem weird to me that this is how it happened. When someone becomes the vice president, they win on that ticket, there's a chance they'll become the president.
Well, yeah, but I mean, Joe Biden was the vice president, and he had to run for the nomination in 2020 against a bunch of other candidates, which wasn't just handed to him. Barack Obama didn't just get to go, I doth thee the next Democratic candidate. He had to run for it. Kamala Harris did not, but that's fine. You know, I've made a lot of, I've made an issue about this a number of times. People don't see it the same way as me. That's fine, not a big deal. what do you make of the idea that the Democrats are the patriotic party, Jessica?
I will say one more thing on the
go
earlier
ahead.
point. When someone retires or unfortunately passes away and they're serving in Congress, there is a process to appoint someone, usually the governor of the state. I'm pretty sure that's how it works everywhere. The governor of the state decides who gets to replace them. And so that's not a very democratic process, but people will get to vote for Harris in November.
Has Biden he hasn't stopped being the president.
No, he hasn't, but he stopped running his campaign.
Yeah, when somebody dies in office, somebody gets appointed to replace them.
Or if they
temporarily,
choose to step aside, they get replaced as well.
Temporarily, while in order to give time for the democratic process to function so that someone can be elected to that position.
Well, usually what happens is when the governor is someone of the same party, they will choose to retire during their term so they can appoint someone, and then that person has incumbent's advantage and will be more likely to win the seat.
Okay.
And that happens all the time. But, okay, let's talk about the patriot thing.
Patriotism.
Patriotism.
We love it.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's good to center the messaging around freedom. I think that's very smart at a time when abortion's an issue that a lot of Americans want to protect the right to abortion. And Democrats have that as like the most popular issue that they can run on. And framing that as freedom and framing the ability to just afford housing and groceries as freedom, because you don't have freedom if you can't afford basic necessities. If all you're thinking about all day long is how am I going to make ends meet, that's not a very free way of living. And so I think just this framing around freedom and using the American flag is very smart.
I mean, I think using the American flag and patriotism and freedom are rhetorically smart things for political figures to do because freedom is popular. I would say that I think it's very cynical, and the Democrats' policies are not pro-freedom whatsoever, as evidenced by Tim Walz being on the ticket, someone who adopted all of the same blue state anti-freedom policies during COVID. You know, it's rich for them to be saying, yes, we're all about leaving you alone and letting you make your medical decisions and not interfering in that. These are the ideological leaders of the lockdowns and mandates for masks and vaccines, for keeping schools closed, for doing all of the interfering, annoying, obnoxious COVID policies that Democrats became known for when it became a partisan issue. And they're saying, no, we're going to be the leave you alone people. And I agree with you that more needs to be done to make food, housing, other things more affordable. You know, the Democratic approach to that is to literally set the price of those things or to subsidize them in the ways that I think are going to make them more expensive. So I don't know that that's freedom policies, but the freedom messaging is certainly what they're going for. And yes, it's smart. I don't think the policies are good, but maybe people will believe that that's something resembling freedom is what's being offered up by the Democrats.
I don't know. I think Walz's popularity, we're saying that he has a much higher net favorability rating than J.D. Vance does. And I think that's because J.D. Vance has spent so much time talking about women and talking about having families and talking about restricting the right to abortion that, like, I really credit his favorability rating being so low to that. Mm-hmm. And the framing around freedom and how Walz has always been protective of LGBTQ rights when he was, in the high school where he was the football coach at, where he was a social studies teacher at, he was this military vet and he sponsored that club. I think all of those things are, more positive protections of civil liberties and freedom than what we're seeing from the other side right now.
More Rising right after this.